We had a lot of the LGBTQ reaching out in extreme anger that we would host this group. I also had repercussions from the Navy base, as well as from our head BC Yukon Command and Ottawa. Somebody quoted that it was a hate crime, which is not what I had said.
There was nothing hateful going on. She was very surprised that she was feeling this pressure. And then I obviously wrote to the Nanaimo School Board trustees to say that one of them was libeling and defaming me and a group of women for speaking on this issue.
How far the left has fallen, especially when it starts to describe a group of women advocating for women's rights as a hate group. Yet that is the label that some of the women who have participated in an event called Vancouver Island Speaks are being hit with. You may recognize the name of that event because we've covered them before. They're hosted by journalist and podcaster Megan Murphy, as well as Bryony Dixon, an events producer who was recently, I guess in 2023, canceled from her artistic managing producer position at the Nanaimo Fringe. Bryony joins me today to tell us the latest about how this group of women advocating for safe spaces for women and children and things like fairness in women's sports are trying to be canceled, not just by the LGBTQ activists this time. No. It appears that some behind the scenes, aka FOI information, is showing how school trustees have come out against them, as well as some of their public statements too. We're going to talk to Bryony right now, but in case you don't know, I'm Drea Humphrey with Rebel News, and this is The Other Side of the Story.
We put the location out publicly on the day of the event, and then we had a successful, wonderful event. Lots of people showed up. We had a really great conversation. And then, of course, the usual backlash from trans rights activists hounding the Legion at various levels until the manager that hosted us, replied to them in an email pretty much apologizing for what had happened, like for putting on her event. I spoke to her on the phone. She didn't really realize the kind of feedback they'd received for hosting an event like this. So she was pretty shocked that she had all these directions from the higher ups that she had to put out this response. But then activists took that email that she'd written and put it into a graphic that made it look like Legion branding, the red background and everything, and tried to pass it off as an official statement of the Legion denouncing us. And I discovered that a local school board trustee, where my children go to school in Nanaimo Ladysmith, School District 68, was one of those people sharing that graphic saying that we were a hate group and it had been a hate rally.
Let's show what he had to say. His name is Tom Rokeby. Hopefully I said that right. And he says, statement from the Royal Canadian Legion in Victoria regarding the anti-trans group that disingenuously rented their hall for one of their hate rallies last week. So let's just pause there for a moment, because boy, is that something you don't want to be labeled as. I've covered some of your events before. You guys actually make a point of welcoming the other side, for lack of words. In this particular event, it had familiar faces to Rebel News, like Coach Linda Blade, who's worked with women in sports. And you also had a young lady who used to identify as non-binary and had a double mastectomy and regrets it. But here you have what looks like the Legion calling you guys a hate group. So that's got to have the community going, what the heck? And a school trustee putting out something like this. Now, you did do some steps to kind of tackle this. Let's talk about that.
Yeah, I contacted the Legion right away. I spoke to the manager on the phone. She admitted on the phone, and I was recording it, that there was nothing hateful going on. She was very surprised that she was feeling this pressure. And then I obviously wrote to the Nanaimo School Board trustees to say that one of them was libeling and defaming me and a group of women for speaking on this issue. And I actually had there's some local women that attend our events and know what they're about and know that there's nothing hateful about them, who also wrote to the school board about this. And I pretty much realized that the conversation just can't happen at the school board level. So I wrote to the school board. We got a response, pretty much acknowledging receipt and saying things like, there's no way we can have this conversation because it puts our most vulnerable students at risk. And it's Mr. Rokeby's free speech, freedom of expression in order to be able to defame people, apparently. And it wasn't in his capacity as a school trustee, so they kind of wrote it off as no big deal.
Oh my goodness. So freedom of expression matters there when a man, talk about misogyny, some would see it as, trying to shut down a women's rights movement. But it didn't end there. Before I get to sort of another school trustee sort of weighing in on this, because you did an FOI to get a little bit more background, let's just show a clip of the event and just to see, so people can have a taste of what's going on. Now, this is not just a clip of an event. This is a clip from a longer clip, which I'll put in the written article below, which is a video that put together of you calling the Legion to say, hey, are you calling us a hate group? And the clips are also incorporating what really took place at the event.
We heard that you were deeply ashamed and distraught about our event.
It's just what happened afterwards, that we had a lot of the LGBTQ reaching out in extreme anger that we would host this group. I also had repercussions from the Navy base, as well as from our head BC Yukon Command and Ottawa. I've had to issue an apology that if we've hurt anybody's feelings as a result, that I am completely distraught and ashamed that people would think that of our Legion. I don't know if it's been changed or altered, because somebody quoted that it was a hate crime, which is not what I had said.
It might sound hyperbolic to say tyranny, because there's no literal boot on our neck. We're all politely consenting to this march towards a Canada where it's a crime to disagree with someone on the internet or to challenge government policy.
But we did talk about censorship and deplatforming, which are obviously achieved by these kinds of activist tactics that you're now experiencing. Societal acceptance of such atrocities can only be achieved through censorship and propaganda, of which cancel culture is another component. It works by intimidation.
If you see a turf, punch him in the face.
It works by harassment.
Shut your stupid fucking mouth, you stupid fucking turd. Shut your stupid fucking mouth, you stupid fucking turd.
It works by deplatforming.
So that was a taste about that. But there was another trustee who I believe has moved on up in the school board system since then. Tell us about what she had to say, what you discovered in an FOI.
Yeah, this is a past colleague of mine, Naomi Bailey, who's now the chair of the school board. I did the Freedom of Information request because I was interested to see what the internal conversations were going to be like, responding to our kind of letter writing campaign. And sure enough, it revealed, Naomi Bailey kind of doing a character assessment of me and these events, pretty much saying that, we used to be colleagues and friends, but that ended because I am proud of being white, and I've written posts about being a proud English person. I don't think I've ever said about whiteness, but certainly being English, I talk about that quite a lot. And then it moved on to, these are... they say they're women's rights groups, but they are anti-trans. She brought up Janaea Wright, a friend of mine who was speaking at the first event we ever hosted about her daughter being peeped on at the Nanaimo Aquatic Centre, totally disregarding this child safeguarding issue because it didn't align with Naomi's politics.
I'm going to stop you there because you raised two important things that I want to touch on. I want to read what she said when she made the comment of you being too prideful in your whiteness. So she says she was your former Facebook friend up until recently when you lost her because you allegedly posted about how you're so tired of being made to feel bad about being a white woman, which is a real thing that's really happening, and that you're proud of being white, and that she attached an article, you attached an article that quickly made her have to stop going through because it made her angry. Now, you told me you think that article was actually one that I wrote and showed people the anti-white art display that was taking place in Vancouver Art Gallery, right?
Yeah, I think that must be it. I did the, search on my Facebook thing for whiteness, and that was pretty much the most recent thing that came up. And I was saying, because I work in the arts, so you doing that report on the art gallery was no surprise to me, because I see the anti-white sentiment in the arts and culture sector, like it's everywhere. And of course, when I talk on the trans issue, it's the first thing I hear. I'm a privileged white woman, so I basically need to shut up. So I think it was your report, and so it just highlights to me the fact that there is certainly not an equal treatment of everybody in the school philosophy, in the philosophy of the school system in BC. Like it's very Animal Farm.
Very. And within that report, one of the main messages is that white people should be silenced. So it's just so weird to me to see that she took a hold of some of that and gets angry, not about that message, but angry that you are saying that that's not okay. The next thing you brought up was Janaea Wright, who has spoken at some of your events before. We've also reported on what happened to her daughter. I think at the time it was around 8 or 9 years old, in the girls' change room at the Nanaimo swimming pool, and a man with a wig is caught by mom peeping underneath the change stall. And when Janaea Wright goes to tell the story, she gets pushed back. And so this trustee, this woman, has sort of twisted what she had to say and what happened when she stuck up for her daughter and other little girls, right?
Yeah, she took the opinion of the city, apparently, over Janaea's own opinion, who was there. Janaea is my friend, and I know that they've never spoken about this. You only have to look, actually, at some all-right local reporting. Czech News did an article on Janaea's safety rally that she kind of hosted after this incident. And, we had some trans identified youth showing up, ready to counter protest, thinking it was an anti-trans event. Janaea spoke to these kids, and the article describes that realized they were all coming, we care about safety too, and we're coming at it from two different perspectives, but it's the same. And they realized it wasn't anti-trans, and yet Naomi Bailey is still calling this, saying that Janaea is my sidekick in these anti-trans events that we do. So just really misrepresenting her concern for her daughter in that moment.
Very sickening. Janaea wrote on Facebook about this and says that she clearly does not care about children's safety if it conflicts with her politics, which is concerning for her as a parent, as her child is in the district as well. She says this is someone who should be looking out for the well-being of all of our children. I have never spoken to this woman, and yet she is spreading false information regarding the story to other trustees. All she had to do was refer to local news, as you said as well, for an accurate account of the events surrounding the incident. Now, I have, of course, reached out to both Miss Bailey and Tom Rokeby. And if I hear from them in a timely manner, we'll add that at the end of this report. If not, update the written article, which you can find in the description box. But tell us in closing what your next step is involving the district.
Well, I continue to update them on this issue because clearly they don't know what we talk about at these events. I see this as always an educational opportunity. Here, watch the event that you think is a hate rally and tell me what is hateful about it. And then hopefully that'll just get them hearing the alternative viewpoint, right? But also I've, heard some quite disturbing things about this school district from students that go to the Ladysmith High School, for instance, here have told me that they have a youth wellness van that parks on school property. So we seem to be moving beyond just the social transition in schools into, partnerships with Island Health that are enabling actual medicalization on school property as well, which is really concerning to me, given the developments with puberty blockers being banned just in the last 3 weeks in Northern Ireland, Scotland, New Zealand recently even, everywhere is pushing back on this medicalizing of minors, and yet the Nanaimo Ladysmith School Board seems to be doubling down on this. And when I've tried to present at the school board, I met with an agenda setting committee, so I can't speak to them about it. They pretty much just brushed me off. So I'm writing to Island Health, trying to get freedom of information requests about which kind of students are accessing these services, because as far as I'm concerned, this is targeting, gender nonconforming, gay, gay, Indigenous, and often autistic students. So they are the most vulnerable students. And if they're being subject to this medicalization at school, then and often without parental consent, right? The Island Health Youth Clinics say that they offer confidential gender-affirming services for anyone under 25. They don't put a minimum age on that.
Well, let us know what you dig up on that. I've already done some reports about how partnerships with Island Health can be problematic when it comes to what parents don't think is going to happen behind school doors. Thanks so much for being back on Rebel News.
Thanks, Treya.
At Rebel News, as I always say, we don't back down from bringing you the other side of the story. And if you think that that is something Canada desperately needs, please consider being a part of what makes that possible, especially on issues like this. To do so, go to our special website called stopclassroomgrooming.com. You can take action by signing our petition, which will go very wide to demand changes in our schools. And you can do what you can to donate while you're there to keep the lights on at Rebel News.